So let us revise what we already know about multiplication and division in grades 1 and 2. The first important thing to remind ourselves is that multiplication is just notation, right? So we have to remember that multiplication is only notation, right? So it's only notation, meaning that it's just a compact way of writing something that we would take a long time to write. So, for example, um, if I want to add, let's say I have numbers and I want to add 3 4 times. So if I have 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, it gets to be a bit tedious. So I'm going to denote it by, so this is saying D note. Okay, so I'm going to say D note. So I'm going to denote by 4 threes. And please note, I never say the multiplication symbol because it just makes it much easier to visualize 4 threes. So this is 4 threes. Another, for example, thing that I could do is I could add 4s 3 times. So this would be, again, I'm going to denote it by 3 4s. And I'm not going to say the multiplication symbol. And now please note that 4 threes are the same as 3 4s. And the reason is very simple, because when I look at 4 threes, so here's 1 3, so here's a 3, here's another 3, here's the third 3, and here's a fourth 3. There are 4 threes here. And I could also choose to look at 4s, and here's 1 4 horizontally, here's the second 4 horizontally, and here's the third 4 horizontally. Since you're just counting differently and the number of rabbits does not change, 4 threes has to be equal to 3 4s, and that's the commutative law of multiplication. So that's something that we learned, that 4 threes must be. So this equality is really a must. So this is must be. This is what it says. Must be equal to 3 4s. Okay? So this is what we knew about multiplication. And now please note that sometimes the book will use the commutative law and write down something like 3 2s, but you actually see 2 3s. So I would probably write it as 2 3s just to make it easier for children to understand, children like you to understand. But sometimes the book writes 3 2s, and that can be confusing because it's actually equal to 2 3s. So please be aware of it as you read the book, that sometimes the book is using the commutative law to express things, whereas correctly it should be written in a slightly different way. Okay, so now let's move on to division. So division, please remember, has 2 interpretations, and the first interpretation is that we want to find out how many groups are there. So I'll tell you the number of objects per group, and you will help me find the number of groups. So let's try an example. Let's say if I tell you that there are 2 objects per group. So let's say there are 6 objects. So here are 6 objects. So there are 6 objects. So let's try white. So there are 6 objects, and I'm going to divide by 2, and I know the answer is 3. So what does it mean? So when I'm thinking about the group's interpretation, so what this thing means is that I know that there are 2 objects per group. So let's look at 2 objects per group. There are 6 objects, and I know there are 2 objects per group. So the question is, how many groups are there? And the answer is 3. Why is it true that this is 3? Because what 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3 means that actually 3 2s is equal to 6. So this is what I mean. 3 2s is equal to 6. That's the meaning that I have for the number of groups. Now a different question could be, here's again 6 divided by 2. I'm going to write 6 divided by 2 again, and it means 3, but now the meaning is going to be different. So now I'm going to tell you how many groups are there. So now I tell you that there are two groups, and I want to know how many objects are there per group. That's a different question. And 6 divided by 2 is 3, because 2 threes are equal to 6, or 2 times 3 is equal to 6. And you can clearly see, since we already know that 3 twos and 2 threes are actually equal, we know that they are equal to each other by the commutative law. So the two interpretations make sense, and we can think about either the number of groups or the number of objects per group. Okay, so again, I'm revising the whole thing, and now if we look at the relation between multiplication and division, we actually did it on the previous page. Please note that 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3 can mean two things. So this is what it means. It can either mean that 3 twos are equal to 6, or it could mean that 2 threes are equal to 6. And the idea is really that you can think of this as different ways, because if you have 3 twos, so what you're thinking about it is that you are going to have 1 2, 2 twos, and 3 twos. Another interpretation would be 2 threes. And the idea is that when you calculate 3, so this is telling you the number. So on the top line, on the top line right over here, you're finding the number of groups. So this is how many. So this question would be about groups, and down below, the question would be about the number of objects per group. Objects per group. Okay, and that's the relationship between multiplication and division. Multiplication is just change of notation, and we're really defining division. So this is defining division in terms of multiplication. Okay.